I would like to welcome you to the final luncheon and keynote speaker of the 2012 HI-TEC conference. It truly has been a pleasure for me to serve you this way, and it's kind of getting to the point where it's time to hand over the reins, and I would like to introduce Gordon Snyder, who will be the chair for next year's HI-TEC conference, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that. Then I'll come back and introduce our luncheon speaker.
Hi. Thanks, Deb. You did a great job, and maybe we should all give you a good round of applause here. And it's not just Deb, it's the, all the executive committee members, the work that Court did, especially Sheila, who's probably off doing something right now. All the presenters and all the attendees, a lot of new people here, and that's great. So next year we're going to be in Austin. Maybe flip the slide. Yeah. So I've got some fun facts about Austin. It's going to be at the Renaissance Arboretum Hotel. Some of you have been there before. I guess it's being all remodeled, right, Sheila? It's completely been gutted. But if you've never been to Austin, Austin is a pretty popular place to visit. There's about 19 million visitors that come to Austin each year. And if you compare that, Disneyland has about 14.7 million a year. The Eiffel Tower, 6.7 million a year. And Niagara Falls, 14 million a year. So it's a pretty popular place. It's the live music capital of the world. And if you like live music, I know I have a daughter that is excited about coming next summer, and it'd be a great place, I think, to take your family, make a little vacation out of it. It's the only city in the world that still operates something called these moonlight towers, which are sort of look like the moon at night. It's the safest big city in the United States. They average 300 days of sunshine a year. The Colorado River runs right through downtown, which is kind of neat. It's home to to North America's largest urban bat population. You've seen the bats at night, and that's pretty cool. And the Independent Business Alliance has a slogan for Austin. Does anybody know what it is? You know what it is. It's Keep Austin Weird, right? So I know I'll probably fit right in. Really, Austin Community College librarian. And I also learned that Austin Community College has about 33,000 students. So that's a pretty big community college, especially where I'm from. But, you know, just to get a little serious here, our goals for the 2013 conference are really to get new people. There's a lot of new people here, and that's great. You're first-timers. We want to get you interested in presenting. You know, a lot of you watched other people present now. So start thinking about putting something together. We would love to have you come and talk about the work you're doing with your students, your business and industry. We want to get more new people involved every year. So let's do it. I guess that's all I really have to say. Looking forward to next year, though. Thank you.
Just truly encourage everyone to think about what you can do to share information. Again, you know, as I said at the beginning yesterday morning, a lot of this is about sharing information and lessons learned, and so we don't have to have the same scars. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Ben Robinson. And this is really an emotional introduction for me because before I started doing nanotechnology, I spent 23 years of my career in the space industry, doing radiation analysis on satellite systems and providing electronics for satellite systems. And When General Dynamics decided that they had too many executives and not enough revenue and my job went away, it literally took me 2 years before I could drive past the building without crying. Because that's how strong my tie and my emotions as well as my mental and physical energy were attached to the space industry. And, you know, thankfully, I am now working in an industry that poses as the same amount of puzzles to be solved and the interest, and I truly love doing nanotechnology. But Ben Robinson is a retired brigadier general from the United States Air Force. He used to work just down the road in Cheyenne Mountain, and we've kind of talked. He probably was actually monitoring some of the satellites that had my stuff on it. He is a former Boeing executive. And, you know, I was kind of talking to him and I said, oh, gee, you know, introducing you is going to make me cry. And he kind of said, well, I make my wife, Linda, cry all the time too. And Linda is here with him. So, but I have a feeling it's probably for different reasons. He's currently, he owns and directs an aerospace industry consulting company. They're located in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. He's an executive in residence with the Oklahoma Career Technology Center System and teaches aerospace courses at Oklahoma State University. Again, he served in the Air Force for more than 30 years. And for that, I'm just really proud to be able to introduce Ben Robinson as our speaker.
I'm going to kind of stay down here and walk around, okay? Is that all right with everybody? Okay? And by the way, this is audience participation, so I may come over and call on you. So be ready with some kind of an answer, all right? First of all, we're delighted, Linda and I are delighted to be here. It is 77, I believe, in Denver today, and it's like 97 in Oklahoma City, which means it is a really cool day there. And being here, it's great to... I met some new friends from other countries like Brazil and Texas since we've been here, so we're really enjoy that. This thing about introducing speakers and making you cry when you introduce a speaker reminds me of a story we told last night at our dinner table. This back during World War II, and we have these 3 prisoners that are particularly aggressive about organizing escapes and things going on in the prison camp. And finally the prison commandant said, I'm just tired of these 3 guys organizing and having all these problems, and we're just going to use them as an example. We're going to take them out and we're going to shoot them in front of the entire prison camp. So there was a major general, a brigadier general, and a colonel. And the commandant says, before we shoot you, we are going to offer you your last wish. And he turned to the major general and said, how about you? And he said, well, I'm from Kentucky. And he said, I'd like a good glass of Kentucky whiskey and a Kentucky cigar. I said, okay, we can do that. He turns to the brigadier general and he says, how about you? And he says, well, you know, I'm a new brigadier general and I've never had a chance to address all my troops and give a really good leadership speech. And that's what I would like to do. So the commandant says, okay, we'll assemble the entire camp and you can give them your leadership speech. He turns to the colonel and he says, how about you? And the colonel says, I know this brigadier general, and he said, I'd like for you to shoot me before he speaks. So what Deb said kind of reminded me of that story, okay? So I hope I don't bring anyone to tears in what I'm going to tell you today. What I want to talk about is, and having walked around here this morning and had a chance to visit some of the exhibitors, I'm really impressed with what you've got. I've made a couple of phone calls back to Oklahoma already saying, why aren't we here? We got to get here next year. We got to get to Austin. Talk to our regional director for Project Lead the Way. And I talked to our aerospace component director, and unfortunately he's out in San Diego right now, just finished a motorcycle ride from Oklahoma City to San Diego. So unfortunately we weren't in here in big a force as we need to be. This is a phenomenal opportunity to see what's going on around the nation. I had a chance to visit some of the exhibitors, and I really am impressed with what I've seen so far. Is this voice activated technology here where I say next slide and it just pops up? Okay, We kind of invented that in Oklahoma, so let's try that. Okay, excellent. See how that works? It's kind of carbon-based and then voice-activated. All right, so I'm happy to be here. This talk is what I believe, and it's based upon my early experiences, my military experiences, my Boeing experiences, and what we're doing now in Oklahoma. So, next slide. All right, so as you heard, have some experience with the military. So this is my beliefs, observations, and offerings from, let me talk about early failures. How many of you went through high school and you were kind of smart, but you didn't really apply yourselves, and you could kind of make a B by just being in the same room with a book, and you just didn't really study? Anybody like that? All right, this is our story. So I go off to eastern New Mexico, affectionately known as Eastern. How many of you, anyone here from New Mexico? Clovis area? There's got to be one person here from Clovis. You're kidding. There's two kinds of people in the world, people from Clovis and people who want to be. So you got, that qualifies right there. All right? I'm now 100%, every place I've been. Cruise boat in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico last summer, people sitting right next to me from Clovis, New Mexico. Isn't that amazing? There's 5 million people from Clovis, they're just never in the same place at the same time. So I went to college down the road from Clovis, eastern New Mexico, and no concept one-to-one to do, and yet my little brother and I had both been very technically oriented. We could take apart and put together my mother's dryer and have parts left over. So we were that good. We were in the lean manufacturing before there was lean. Obviously, we don't need these parts. We can't figure out where they go. We probably weren't necessary. And your mother's dryer makes a magnificent turbine engine for a wind tunnel experiment. It's magnificent. The dryer is a magnificent mercury capsule if you can ever keep the wind drift key from snapping off the shaft. So we tried all those things. Went off to Eastern, and this is some of the advice I give to young people when they go to college is, if your roommate is on a bull riding scholarship, go get a new roommate the very first day. So that was kind of what I thought. Maybe I wanted to be a bull rider. I thought maybe I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but I kind of vacillated towards feedlot management, which was pretty close. And had a magnificent freshman year. 5 semesters, and my sophomore year kind of started slowing and tapered off, and so after about 3.5 years, I was diagnosed with a medical condition known as academic unconsciousness. Now, if you flunk out of college in 1968, you can get a job. It's amazing. You can get a job. In fact, people will come and find you just to get you to go to work for them. So I found an employer, big organization, and went to work for them. And they, after a while, they taught me how to shoot straight, and I was just magnificent. And then I was going to get to go to overseas and meet new people and have them shoot at me. And they gave me an opportunity to be a helicopter pilot. And I thought, this is now my career path. I wish I'd have found it. I wish someone had said to me sometime in my early life, you know, as smart as you are when it comes to math, as much as you like you ought to be an engineer. I thought an engineer was a guy in front of a train. We never had that discussion anytime in Clovis, in junior high or high school. Never had that discussion. Never. Unfortunately, some of that still happens today. Would you believe that? Some of it still happens today? Okay. So after spending 34 years in the military, I did manage to make it up to brigadier general, and I flew about something like 28 different airplanes. The one thing I always wanted to do in that whole time was I'd love to have been a test pilot. Loved to have been, but no math, no science, as far as degrees, no engineering. I'm sorry, as good as you are, as much fun as you had flying. I flew F-15, a U-2, B-2 bomber. I got to fly satellites in the space program. I was a surveillance officer the morning we launched the Hubble rescue mission. Got to do some really cool things, but I never could get past the fact that back there in high school, I never really knew what I wanted to do. And as a result, I didn't have any study habits. When I went away to college, it just was not going to work for me. So it took me a second chance to get through college. Now, for those that, I did go back and finish. I did go to Central Michigan University, and I did get my master's. And in 1998, I got selected to be an MIT fellow. So I did recover. And I think it was that extra couple of years I spent as a freshman was what put me over the top, without a doubt. Okay. So 5.5 years as a Boeing executive, Seattle, business development, in Anaheim. I had 40 engineers working for me. They didn't know I wasn't an engineer. Whenever we had to solve engineering problems, I'd make them get outside in the parking lot and play touch football to solve engineering problems. And then 2 years as the vice president of the Oklahoma School of Science and Math. Great school. Main campus, about 140 students. We're expanded to 280, and then we have 15 regional campuses around Oklahoma. And then the part in red there is what I'm doing today. We have a consulting company in Oklahoma City with clients in Kansas, Texas, and Oklahoma. Executive in residence. I'm chairman of the Oklahoma Aerospace and Education Partnership, and as well as the chairman of the STEM subcommittee. And as Deb mentioned, I get to teach at OSU as an adjunct professor in our aerospace logistics program there. Great program. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the presentation. Next slide. Hypothesis. I don't normally go around hypothesizing, and in fact, this is probably the first time I've ever used hypothesis in any kind of presentation, but I owe this to my 6th grade granddaughter. We're working on a wind turbine science project, and she says, we have to have a hypothesis. And I said, okay, I'll be right back. I went and Googled it and came up with this. It's an if-then thing. So my hypothesis is, if industry needs well-educated, knowledge-based, well-trained, skill-based, and motivated employees, and those employees are in today's classroom, then a partnership between education and industry just makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Okay? So that's kind of the theme of what I believe and what we're doing in Oklahoma. And my granddaughter will be very proud of me that I got this hypothesis across to you. Next slide. Okay, so how many of you ever heard of this famous dead guy here, Hertzberg? Hertzberg was a guy who said there's two kinds of factors. There's satisfiers, which he calls hygiene factors, and then there's motivators, which he describes as where the real payoff is in the motivators. And the hygiene factors are those things like quality of life, salaries, benefits, good working conditions, good grades, a diploma. Whereas the motivators are those that are more difficult to get to, but they're the ones that really pay off. How many of you have ever heard of TGIM? How many of you heard of TGIM? Well, imagine that TGIM is the Monday that follows the Saturday and Sunday prior to Friday. Okay, so that's TGIM. How many of you believe that you have a TGIM type organization? Not a lot of people. There's one right there. Excellent, excellent. We'll talk. When I was at Boeing, I had a Delta dental card. I love my Delta dental card, but I never got up on Monday morning excited about going to work because I had a Delta dental card. I mean, I just felt like I should just run down the street. Hey, look at this, Delta dental card, going to work, I'm happy. Never happened, never happened. But if I ever went to work on Monday morning and I had a toothache and I didn't have a Delta dental problem, I mean, I was totally dissatisfied with Boeing. So we've got to get beyond those satisfiers, and we've got to create that motivation. How do we create motivation? We talk about it all the time, but we talk about satisfaction. We say employee satisfaction. We talk about customer satisfaction. What we really need to work on is employee motivation, customer motivation. We in Boeing, we had all kinds of charts and graphs about customer satisfaction. Yet our customer wanted to do something, and our customers go out and compete a contract, and we were just like everybody else that never tried to satisfy this customer, and they were new guys on the street, and they got to compete against us. So we said, let's stop doing this. We're going to create an environment of customer motivation so our customers will be willing to take the chance to give us a sole source contract that we don't even have to compete for. That saved them money and time, saved us money and time, but we had to create that condition. That's what this famous dead guy was talking about. Get out of hygiene factor business and get into motivation. Okay, so next slide. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Why do I need to take all this math in high school? Because it is required for graduation. Oh, that motivates me. Wow, I'll jump on top of that. Our goal here in the Department of Education is to graduate a lot of students, okay? Majority of people who are occupying places right now because they can't get a job graduated from someplace. Why isn't that say, we want to put you on a career pathway? Our job in education really is to create a condition that you can go out and have a great quality of life and a great quality of opportunity, have a family, get yourself off of welfare rolls, and be part of a contributing society, contributing community, contributing nation that really makes this a great place to live. Isn't that what we really should be saying instead of, we want you to have a diploma, we want you to graduate? And yet we meet people all the time that have got those diplomas, they're not motivated, they're not on a career path, they can't find a job, but they've got an education. Okay? We got to change that dialogue, and you know it, I know it, and I'm glad I'm with an organization that's working to do that. Motivating our students is what we're talking about. Next slide. But the challenge is, how do we motivate our students to the future workforce in that career path? We believe that the best place to start is a partnership with industry. Bringing industry ideas, bringing industry people in and say, this is the kind of stuff we do in industry, and Boeing had some really cool stuff. Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, all of our industry, aerospace industry, they have some really cool stuff. Talking to 8th graders about how satellites fly by first asking them, what did you have for breakfast? Oh, I had a Pop-Tart. Oh, I had a bowl of cereal. Well, that's wheat. That's a wheat farmer. What does a wheat farmer have to do with space? We talked about GPS, we talked about weather satellites, we talked about communication satellites, we talked about when your mother or dad goes to buy your breakfast and sticks that card in the gas pump, that gas pump's going to call a satellite. Before long, we had them really understanding what space was all about and the math and science behind space, simply by making it relevant to them. So we're addressing this need in the aerospace industry. And this is our story about what we're doing in Oklahoma, and if there's a connection for what you could do or you could use, or you want to tell us what your benchmarks are and your best practices are and how we can link efforts, we'd love to do that. Next slide. First, a little background on our aerospace industry. It's a whole bunch of stuff that we do. It covers the entire spectrum. Where are those guys out there from El Camino College? Are they in the room? Are they here? Maybe they left. That's a shame. But we had a great conversation. I asked them about what they knew about I asked them if they were ever in Oklahoma for the aerospace industry. And no, they're in Wichita. Wichita is one town in a state. We are the entire state is aerospace. Next slide. And these are what I told them: $12 billion industry in aerospace. Fastest growing industry in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, normally associated with agriculture and energy. We're faster growing than any of them. We're right under energy, and we will get bigger than energy in the next 5 years. Oklahoma, leading export in 2009 and 2010 was an aerospace product. $5 billion in annual payroll, and it's the highest paying sector across all 5 of our industry sectors in the state. Aerospace is. 140,000 indirect and direct jobs. We have the world's largest military maintenance, repair, and overhaul depot. World's largest. We have the world's largest commercial airline depot, American Airlines in Tulsa. Yes, they're going under some restructuring, but we expect that they will survive. We have the nation's largest FAA center. We have the nation's largest simulator manufacturer. And we have over 500 supply chain companies that manufacture bits and pieces and parts for the aerospace industry. How many of you knew that? How many had any idea? See, huge aerospace industry. Okay, so we're very interested in growing this part of our industry. Our governor was over at the Farnborough Air Show last week, introduced where we're going with unmanned aero systems. We have a big test range in Oklahoma. We want to be one of six states in the nation that will be used for unmanned aerial vehicle simulation, testing, training, development. We also have a spaceport. That's right, we have a spaceport. We have out in Burns Flats, Oklahoma, we have one of the nation's spaceports. I think the reason they call it spaceports in Burns Flats, houses are not very close together, so there's a lot of space between houses in Burns Flats. That's going to be one answer, but that is a spaceport. Next slide. Here's some examples. Manufacturing. Our manufacturing, as I just mentioned, flight safety, nation's largest simulator builder. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Tinker Air Force Base, the Air Logistics Center, world's largest military depot. Supply chain, Profab makes parts for the F-35, new generation fighter, and Honda Jet, magnificent parts. They also do manufacturing for the oil industry. Engineering and modifications, Boeing in Oklahoma City. We will have 2,000 engineering positions in Boeing within the next 2 years. We've gone from 500 to over 2,000 in the next 2 years. We're creating a serious engineering center right there in Oklahoma. And then finally, advanced technologies. We have a company in Norman, Oklahoma, where the University of Oklahoma is located, that is making micro UAVs. Some of these micro UAVs have got the capability to perch on a power line, just like a small bird would, and you could follow some criminal, you could follow a terrorist around, and we're connecting our micro UAV people with people who make artificial arms and legs and are developing a mechanical hand, and getting that technology together so we can link those two organizations together to develop those perching bird capabilities. We also have a very interesting one. The #1 manufacturer for MRI sensors is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. These MRI sensor guys decided that if they could see through a hard head, maybe they could see through skins of airplanes to be able to detect flaws below the surface of an airplane skin, so you don't have to do this destructive inspection where you have to peel back skins to see what the skin looks like underneath. So they've developed this capability. Now they find subsurface cracks. Now we get some of Deb's nanotechnology stuff in there, and we squirt these nanos in there. It's like Botox for old airplanes. You know, we get these nanos in there holding on to each other, whatever nanos do, and probably you put 2 nanos together and you got 12, you know, and I don't know what nanos do, but it sounds great to me, and we believe that there's a great opportunity there. Next slide. So what are we looking for? Touch labor, huge touch labor. And what for touch labor for us, that's mechanics, that's sheet metal specialists, that's electricians, that's avionics specialists, that's tire and brake, pneumatic specialists, hydraulic specialists, electricians, electrical technologists. Huge tech labor market. Engineers, we are suffering for engineers. If you want to find out what your shortages are any place, go and see what is incentivized. In Oklahoma, we have an Aerospace Engineering Incentive Act signed by the governor last July. If you are an engineer in Oklahoma and you will come to work for the aerospace industry, you do not pay any state income tax for 5 years, up to $25,000. That is a great opportunity. If any of you are engineers and you want to come to Oklahoma and find a job and save on your state income tax and have a really good place to live and be part of a great opportunity to go see some really good basketball, come to Oklahoma, okay? I got friends in the real estate business, and we'll take care of you. Business. Our little operation there in Boeing alone, Oklahoma City, we had 70 locations worldwide. We managed $66 billion in contract. That's a lot of business people, a lot of contract people. And yet we don't have a school in the state of Oklahoma that taught aerospace business. We had ag business, we had energy business, we didn't have aerospace business. So we're looking for people who will come into our business side of the aerospace industry. Information technologists, we're not talking about people who load software onto laptops. We're talking about people who understand how to do data mining, who understand how to create smart mobile agents that will go out through internet and through net-centric opportunities and find data for us, pull it back, bundle it, merge it, synthesize it so it goes from data to knowledge, and we can make decisions on knowledge based upon what these smart mobile agents are doing for us. And finally, researchers. We have a tremendous opportunity to grow in our research business. The FAA Center alone There's an organization out there called the Civilian Aeromedical Institute. That's where all the testing and all the research is being done on space flight and physiological impacts of space flight. It all is done right there in Oklahoma City. Tremendous draw for researchers. Next slide. Well, here's our background. And you know, it's a national problem. We're 17th in the world in engineering. China's first and India's second. We're 17th. 21st in science and 26th in math. We're right up there with Spain. Spain's a great country. We've been in Spain several times. I love this. While they invented sangria, we were putting someone on the moon. Now, what happened, America? I mean, really, what happened? We've got to recapture what happened to us and get us back on that ability to look at what did it take for us to get to the moon, and could we. That was a national, that for those of us that grew up in that time, I'm not going to embarrass anybody to say, you know, were you old enough? You certainly weren't. But you know, I mean, when you're in like the 6th or 7th grade and you're inspired to make a secret project out of your mother's dryer and to convince your little brother to get in it, that's an inspiration, you know? Oh, by the way, he did recover from vertigo and several head injuries and 2 or 3 other fatal accidents, and he's now a Continental Airline pilot. So if you ever get on an airplane, and this is your pilot speaking, Vernon Robinson, this guy's the Maytag commander. So, so you may want to think about that. In Oklahoma, 3rd and 4th quartile in science and math in middle and high school. That's terrible. 80% of the young people we bring in our technical schools can't make a 70 or better on an applied math test. There are people who have a diploma, but yet they can't do applied math to rate any better than 70% on a test. Attrition rate for high school students going into an engineering program, if you do not have calculus, is a 70% attrition rate. That's also a national figure. That's a $500,000 hit every year simply because we lose scholarships because they can't complete engineering because they can't finish calculus. Business schools in Oklahoma, at both OU and OSU, they do not recruit because they get their business students from engineering. Engineering is called pre-business, you know? So you go and you sign up for engineering and you end up in business. Except for this one young lady there that signed up. She was an organ player at Baylor, and she went over to business, because I guess organ playing is really tough at Baylor University, right? So Sheila back there told us that story. So it takes a lot of calculus to be an organ player. Only one of our 25 universities in Oklahoma has engineering as a top 5 major. Only one. It's a community college. So now we're incentivizing engineers because we're not producing enough engineers in our colleges because we're not putting the rigor and relevance into our middle school and our high school programs, and we're not motivating young people to get into this business. We're not motivating teachers to learn about it so they can teach to it. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide. So, lack of employees, qualified employees, lack of engineers, lack of rigor and relevance, lack of engagement between industry and members and educators. And this is a unique environment we have here where I see educators and industry people sitting together and having a conference like this. This is magnificent. Magnificent. I go to a lot of education programs, and it's all educators in the room talking to educators. And yet, and the educators, the other producers, and the consumers are not there. The industry members are not there. It's kind of like bad parents that sit in the bleachers and yell at the coach. We want to get industry out of the bleachers, stop yelling and get the coach, and come down here after a really bad ball game and say, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I be part of a winning team here? How can I get involved in the education program at the elementary school level if that's what it takes, and help you produce somebody that we want to have in our workforce? I visited a little school not too long ago, Telstar Elementary School in Midwest City, and I asked these young people what they want to do, and I got a large number of responses that say, work at Walmart. I was kind of disappointed, work at Walmart. And a teacher, as we were walking out, said, you know, you didn't like that answer. I said, well, I didn't. It wasn't that I didn't like it or like it, it's just that I was surprised. It said, everything in their life comes from Super Walmart at 23rd and Douglas. That's where their food comes from, that's where their toys come from, that's where their clothes come from, that's where their parents buy their gas to go any place, that's where they rent a video. Everything in their life comes from Super Walmart at 23rd and Douglas. Yet airplanes fly over their school every day, coming and going from Tinker Air Force Base, and no one says, hey, look up. You got friends in big places and high places, look up. Find out what do they do, and how could I do that someday? What would I have to do that someday? It's a lot better than working at Walmart. Walmart's a great place, but being part of the aerospace industry is even better. Lack of knowledge in the aerospace industry. There are as many people in Oklahoma that don't know what I told you as in this room that didn't know about the industry. So we're getting out and talking about it a lot. Next slide. So we have created this concept, and we went to see our lieutenant governor when I was still with Boeing, and I was the Boeing executive director for Oklahoma. And we talked to her about getting more engaged in the schools and talking to students, and she said, students aren't the answer, teachers are the answer. You've got to reach the teachers, and you've got to reach the teachers in a way that they know you're serious and you will stick with them and you really want a partnership with them. So we created the Aerospace Education and Industry Partnership concept. David Bond here, you all know David, right? Raise your hand, David. That's David Bond, okay? He is, his family tree does go back to an Englishman by the name of James Bond. He told us that last night, so they are related. So he had a chance to come down to Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago and see this thing in action. We're aiming at STEM teachers from the 3rd grade through 12th grade, okay? And we're saying we're going to create a partnership that understands and appreciates what you do as teachers in creating our workforce that we've got to have. And if we're not willing to partner with you, we're not going to get people coming and doing the kind of technical education that I see happening as a result of this conference and those exhibitors. We're going to change that conversation from one that's just about education to one that is about developing a workforce and creating career pathways. So that's the concept behind it. Next slide. And here's our actual mission statement. Bring together educators, industry, and government to create the aerospace workforce of tomorrow. Apply relevance to the study of STEM, bring an understanding of aerospace careers and making the connection between that and STEM education, and encourage young men and women to enter aerospace as a career. Next slide. So here's the actual execution. We're in our 5th year. We just finished our 5th year. It runs annually from June through the following June. It coincides with our annual kickoff, which is at our Aerospace Summit, which we do every June. We do it the first week of June because we want to get teachers there, and teachers tell me that they go and get summer jobs. So if you want us to come, accommodate us by having it early on in the summer so we can go pursue a summer job. Okay? We'll do that. And we drove the entire summit that way. So we introduced them that first year, the first week of June. That's our annual kickoff. 5 times now, rotates between Oklahoma City one year and Tulsa the next. Mid-year, we bring NASA in, and we have workshops in Oklahoma City area and workshops in Tulsa with NASA coming up and providing professional development for our teachers. We have a huge resource of FAA online education, which all of our fellows, oh, by the way, when these teachers come, they're designated as Oklahoma Aerospace Fellows. We've now got them registered against the entire online education resources through the FAA. We've created a fellows network where these fellows can share ideas back and forth. Some of our senior fellows now are called ambassadors, and the ambassadors are ones that actually plan our breakout sessions. We have an aerospace grants program, $15,000 grant program. $10,000 of it comes from industry. $2,500 of it. How many of you are familiar with PITSCO? PITSCO Scientific Equipment. Okay, PITSCO puts in $2,500, and our lieutenant governor through the Business Roundtable gives us $2,500. So that's $15,000 for our students, for our teachers. During the breakouts or during the kickoff, we have breakout sessions. We have breakout sessions on everything from forces of flight down at the elementary level to fairly high level programs from the FAA, where the FAA will come out and teach what they're doing out at their aeromedical center. We had a reception. Did you go to the reception, Dave, the night before at the FAA? We went out to the FAA. We normally have a really good reception for our fellows. We then have an industry mentor program. Now the mentors, and I was in one of the breakout sessions, the mentor talked about dealing with students. We have mentors for the teachers, for our fellows. So we have Air Force Association, the FAA, the Air Logistics Center, American Airlines, Spirit Aerospace, Boeing, all are mentoring companies. So you are in that area, you want to mentor, you go into our aerospace, our Oklahoma Aerospace website, click on mentor, go to the area that you're in, click a company, and they'll give you a contact point in order to create a mentorship for you, for your class, you as a teacher, you as a fellow. We also did an I didn't know that video. I didn't know that is the response we get continuously when we tell people about the aerospace industry in Oklahoma. I didn't know that. Oh gosh, why don't we make a video? This video is a young lady, it's a student at OSU. She was a student, she's now graduated and gone on to a career. She visits the Oklahoma Air Logistics Center and she asks the question, well, what do you do here? And they explain it to her. And at the end she says, well, I didn't know that. She gets in the car, drives to Tulsa, goes to flight safety, same thing. And after she finishes, they say, well, I didn't know that. She visits 5 companies in 5 different cities, from manufacturing, MRO, research, engineering, and supply chain. Every time she finishes with, I didn't know that. At the end, she's standing under Wiley Post's airplane, famous Oklahoman, Wiley Post's airplane in our History Center. The capital of Oklahoma is seen through the windows, and she's looking up his airplane. She turns around and she says, well, you've now visited 5 cities, 5 different industries. All of them employ science, technology, engineering, and math students. And if you will finish school, get on a career path, I'll be looking out for you. And at the end, she says, not knowing is no longer an excuse. So we've taken that in the middle schools and we created programs around it. Where did they go? What kind of jobs did they do? Well, let's talk about what does an electronics technician do? What's a pneumatics technician do? What kind of skills would you have to have? What do you think you have? Some of these middle school technology are making a week-long program out of that video alone. It's only a 9-minute video, and they're teaching a whole week of it. Some teachers tell me they can teach their entire technology class off that video alone. So that's what we're doing with the I Didn't Know That video. 9 minutes. Next slide. It's available. If you want to see it, go to the oklahomaarrow.com, okaarrow.com website. That's our Alliance website, and you'll find it on there. Click on it and you'll see it. Next slide. Back up one. See, this thing has got reverse technology. How about that? Amazing. So, SurveyMonkey. Found out from this from my granddaughter. She says you got to go do a SurveyMonkey if you want to get good data. So we did. And really, this was, we had 100 teachers. We got 55 responses out of 100. Oprah Winfrey doesn't get that kind of response, okay? So we did real good here. Over 85% of the fellows are extremely, very, or moderately satisfied. That's not too bad. 94.5% recommended that other teachers go to this program. So we're getting great results. Now, people will say, well, are you getting more kids going to engineering? The mission statement is get teachers involved. We aren't going to get kids into engineering. That's what we've got to help our teachers do. If our mission looks at teachers, and this is what the teachers are saying, we say we're being successful in that mission, based upon what we say our mission has been. So we're very, very pleased with this. This is what I really like. Next slide. This is what the teachers have to say. Their teacher went to AEIP and learned the one thing about aerospace that would speak to them and spark their imagination and turn them on to a career in aerospace. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's a high school teacher that said that from Mustang, Oklahoma. Next slide. Giving educators the opportunity to talk to industry leaders. This teacher told us, Savella told us, never in her entire teaching career had she ever talked to anyone from industry. Never. Never. That's another high school teacher. Next slide. Bring the why to my students, showing them that why science is so important. Remember that thing about why am I taking science? Well, so you can, because it's a requirement to graduate. This says something totally different. This says motivation, doesn't it? Isn't that what that says? Motivation. Next slide. Because of my participation in AEIP, I feel more comfortable and enthusiastic and equipped to teach STEM lessons in my classroom. I've been teaching for 21 years. 21 years. And this is what the program's done for her. Next slide. This is the comments from this year when David was there. Wide variety of career opportunities. Treated like an important professional rather than just a teacher. I love this next one. Awesome feeling. Industry making teachers feel like rock stars. I mean, they were all on the stage wanting to sing by the time we got them out of it. Look at that last one. My entire experience will benefit my students for years to come. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Don't you just want to hear something like that? Next slide. Here's some pictures. Some of the classroom breakout activity we had. That's our main assembly then. That's at Boeing. That's at the Boeing facility. That room will hold 120 people in chairs, and it was standing room only. There's people standing all along the back wall, and it was a great program. And we had a phenomenal guest speaker. We had an industry panel of a young lady. Project Lead the Way. How many Project Lead the Way people we have involved? I love that program. Real World Design Challenge. She was one of the captains of our Real World Design Challenge team and got to go to Washington, finish third place in Washington. So she was one of our speakers. We had a mechanic, an A&P mechanic. We had an engineer from that did crash testing out at the FAA, or prevention of crash testing, I should say it that way, since some of you have to fly home tomorrow. And it's just a great program. That's our Lieutenant Governor there in the lower right-hand corner, handing out some of those certificates. $2,000 was the top grant, 3 of those, and then a bunch of $750 grants. Next slide. Project Lead the Way. This is about career path, right? That is a career path. Project Lead the Way is a great program, and we've incorporated it now in our middle school and our high school programs. Middle school is called Gateway to Technology. If you're not familiar with Project Lead the Way, please look at it because it is a great program for pre-engineering as far as biosciences. And it is a great program for involving industry. Project Lead the Way is very attuned to industry advisory panels, and I sit on a couple of those. We have over 100 programs in Oklahoma, so this is one of the things that we believe is key to our Career Pathways program in Oklahoma. Next slide. Well, a great model for succeeding, that's Arnie Duncan said that, and of course Hillary Clinton. Build a great workforce that meets the needs of the 21st century, and maybe we'll have Project Lead the Way in Afghanistan someday with our Secretary of State. Who knows? Next slide. This is really kind of cool. How many of you believe that best things are best accomplished from the ground up? You know, get down there at the people and empower people at lower levels to come up with some really great ideas. Instead of driving this thing down from some bureaucrats sitting in the Department of Education, driving these things down. So what we decided we would do was we'd create this concept of STEM communities. So we go to a community and we suggest to them, how would you like to be a STEM community? And they said, well, what is a STEM community? And I said, well, that's between the root and the flower. There's a STEM in there, and we want you to be a STEM community. And they said, we'd love to do that. We want to improve our education opportunities in our community. So a STEM community, once they've gone through this 6 steps there, is designated by our governor. First step being awareness. What is the baseline of STEM education within your community today? We're surprised that they didn't really have a good feeling for that. Do you have calculus in high school? What do you do beyond, what kind of chemistry programs, what kind of physics programs do you have? Participation across industry, business advocates, the Chamber of Commerce, parents, students, teachers, administrators. Develop an action plan on, we want to have a 5-year goal and we want to have an action plan that marks progress every year to improve STEM education within our community. We're going to execute it, we're going to produce a rewards and recognition program, and we're going to have a sustainment. We said we want to think big. This is going to be an Oklahoma-wide program, but we're going to start small and we're going to spiral develop. We would rather see, when you drive into Oklahoma, if you've been into Oklahoma right now, we would like to see someone drive into Oklahoma and say, Oklahoma, 6,000 STEM communities. Right now, if you go into Oklahoma, you're going to see a big sign that says, Bo Diddley is playing at the Fire Lakes Casino. We don't want that, okay? We want Oklahoma a home of STEM communities. Next slide. So our first pilot community is Shawnee, Oklahoma. Shawnee, Oklahoma, we've incorporated around Shawnee, it's 9 communities coming together, 18 school districts and 12,000 students. It's sponsored and coordinated. The nucleus is the Gordon Cooper Technology Center. Some of you, since you're involved with technology centers, we're using Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper's got Project Lead the Way pre-engineering programs. It also has an OSSM, Oklahoma School of Science and Math, regional center. So there's a great nucleus there to build on. They're bringing in the business advocates, the recognition for rewards for teachers, total engagement. Now, what's unique about Shawnee is it's about 30 miles east of Oklahoma City. You get on Shawnee, leave Shawnee, you jump on I-40, you drive about 20 minutes, you get on I-240, you drive about 10 minutes, you make a right turn, and you're at the Boeing plant, okay? So Shawnee's kind of saying, we'd like to get some of these Boeing people that are moving here from Southern California to Shawnee, Oklahoma. I mean, it's just a minor step to go from Long Beach, California to Shawnee. Come on. You won't even notice you're gone. We have no Queen Mary, though, but there's some really good bass boats. We have, so they want to see these people come to their community. Well, I'll tell you, having lived in Washington, D.C., Colorado, Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, people go to communities where the school system is really good, really good. And these are families of engineering families. They want their children to be in school systems that are serious about STEM education. So if you want to see an economic driver engine for your community, go improve your school system. It will do it. Total engagement, leveraging the best practices they're going to produce, and then we're already looking at 3 or 4 other STEM communities that we intend to create through this program. Next slide. Higher education partnership. Oklahoma is a logistics-heavy industry as far as aerospace. We didn't have a logistics education program at higher education level. We had airport management and we had professional pilot. Neither one of them were Oklahoma-based industries for what we really needed. We partnered with Oklahoma State University and a community college, Rose State College, created an aerospace logistics program directly across the street from the world's largest MRO, and the thing is going gangbusters, going gangbusters. The first young lady that graduated from the school goes into Booz Allen for an interview, and Booz Allen interviewers said, "You're just exactly what we're looking for." Every student that has graduated has either had a job before they graduate or get a job shortly after their graduation. This is one of the highest, most successful degrees at Oklahoma State in their aerospace program right now. Next slide. Okay, here's our little motto for our state. Oklahoma, a STEM state of mind. Isn't that cool? I love it. I was over in Arkansas talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "Man, we love that idea." And I said, "Well, you can't have this one." They said, "Well, what we're going to say is Arkansas real close to Oklahoma." Hey, that's a great idea. Wow. Woo. Man, innovation. I love it. Next slide. Okay, what I believe, create a partnership between industry. Got to do it. You got to motivate our students, but first you got to motivate the teachers. Let the teachers be your motivators by being a partner to your teachers and recognizing the tremendous asset you have in the classroom. We got to create a national movement on these career pathways. Leverage our best practices, link our efforts, and I'm kind of thinking it's a revolution. It's a revolution, not an evolution. So I think we need to be revolutionary about this thing, and I don't mean break out the guns or anything, but I do think that we need to be revolutionary about what we're doing here. Next slide. Okay, questions? First person that asks me a math question, it's over with. Okay? Next slide is the contact information if you want to get in touch with me, and that's where I'm at, and you can call me. Okay? Thank you very much. Love being here. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you. We invite them to come, and we start registration for our June event. We start in February, and we literally get, and every year we recognize which teachers come from the longest distance, and we'll get them Poto, Oklahoma, which is in the southeastern corner. We'll get them from Guyman, Oklahoma, which is in the northwestern corner. So they will come from the entire state and come in there. We did give them we put them in a hotel free of charge. We give them $100 stipends to cover any expenses they would have. And this is an opportunity for them to come to Oklahoma City and go and see. I mean, the teacher from Guyman that gets to go to the Boeing facility, gets to go to the FAA Center, that's a pretty good draw, And yet, 90% of the aerospace industry is located within 50 miles of a corridor from Lawton to Tulsa. So we got the corridor in there where the majority of the industry is, but we do get teachers from all over. And another thing we're trying to do is a thing called first chance education. Remember, I had a second chance to go to college? First chance. How do we get calculus into high schools that cannot hire a calculus teacher? So we've got to get into distance learning. We just got to get in there, and that's going to be a component of a STEM community. Okay.